Okay, for your watercolor paint setup, and we're going to be using watercolor pans today. That's what these are called because they come in little pans. You're going to need the paint, you're going to need a paintbrush, some water, paper, a paint palette, and a paper towel. And you might need a pencil because of course the first thing we're going to do is write our names on our papers. And I would probably write it on the back. And then, if you want to, you can just start painting right off, or you can actually draw your picture first. So, I usually like to use crayons when I'm working with watercolor paint because it shows up better. And then to activate the paint, you're going to have to get the paint wet. So I'm going to dip my brush in the water. I'm going to wipe it on the lip and get some paint. And I just tickle the paint. You never ever want to dig your brush in the paint because that's going to tear it up and ruin all our paint. Just tickle it a little bit very gently till you see some color getting on your brush, and then you can go ahead and paint. And if your color gets a little bit too dark, that's what your paper towel is good for, because you can always blot it up and soak it up to get it a little lighter. You can also use a white crayon and draw with a white crayon. And we call, when you're using crayons, or this even works with oil pastels, we call it wax resist, and you'll see why in a minute, because you will see the paint will resist anywhere the crayon is. And so you can use black crayon, you can use white crayons, or like I said, you can even use oil pastels. If you want to mix your colors, you're going to mix them in the palette. You never ever want to mix them in your paint. So for example, if I wanted to make maybe a, let's make a lighter green. I'm going to get some yellow first on my brush, and I'm going to put it in my palette. I'm going to grab a little more yellow, and then I want to dip my brush and rinse it every time I get a new color, and I'm just going to get just a little bit of green. Maybe I want to get a little bit more green, so I'm going to wipe my brush again. So that I can have a lighter green. You can also mix the paint directly on the paper, although when you do this you have to work fairly fast because you'll notice the paper soaks up the paint pretty quickly. So you can see when I mix my paint on the paper where that red soaked in, I didn't get to it fast enough. You can still see the outline. So sometimes it's better to mix the paint right on your palette. Now, if you're painting and you're going to mix colors and you forget and go, oh my goodness, just got a bunch of green in my yellow. That's another good thing that the paper towel is good for, because you can kind of just soak up that color to clean out your paint. Because if you don't do that, then we end up with paints that look like this, and that is not pretty, my friends. So make sure that you're always cleaning your colors when you're using them. You don't ever want to fill it up with too much water. The black and the brown come separate, so if you need a black or a brown, you'll just grab them and bring them back to your table. And just make sure you're washing your brush and you're wiping it on the lip of the container every time that you grab a new color. And if your color is too dark, you're going to add more water. And if your color gets too light, you're going to add more paint. So as I add paint, my color, as you can see, will get darker. And that's the basics of using the watercolor pans.